about. But okay, one thing has to do with parallel universes, parallel dimensions, parallel lifetimes. And when I first got this concept, it was a real mind bender. Now, you know, to keep it simple at first, everything is energy. Everything. So when you make a decision, you come to a crossroads in your life, you've got to make a decision. Do I get married? Do I get divorced? Do I take this job? Do I go to this school? You're trying to make a decision which road you want to go down. We have these crossroads. And you know, either way you choose, your life is going to be different, won't it? If you marry this person, or you don't, or if you get a divorce, or if I choose this job, should I move? Your life will be different no matter which direction you go. So you're trying to make a decision. And you have a lot of energy going into making that decision. Then you finally decide, okay, this is the way I'm going to go. All right, what happens to the other alternate decision that you could have taken? What happens to that? It also is created. And another you is living out that other decision. And that gets a little complicated for people. You're living on this life and you're focusing on your decision you made, but another you split off over here and is living that other life. And we're not supposed to know about it because it would be too complicated. That's what they say, you can't know it all. Imagine how complicated it would be if you knew about these other parts, having all these other experiences. I have clients that come to me and they'll say, you know I'm living another existence in another city and I have another family even. I occasionally peek in on them. And they have said this is possible, but you're not supposed to do that because it would cause interference. Because the other reality is not aware of what's going on over here. Now, I hope I'm setting you on what I'm going to get here. These are a lot of complicated concepts. That's the simple thing, way of explaining this. It can also get much more complicated. If it splits like that, it also means every time you make any decision of any kind, it will split again, and again, and again, and again. To where finally there's hundreds of yous living all these different realities. I think you understand a lot of this stuff. Absolutely. Because he's getting it too. But I know it's hard for our minds to accept, so we don't dwell on it. That's why I call the books mind candy. Read it, well, it's interesting. Then you got to put the book down and go on about your own life. Because otherwise, it can really scramble your brain. And I've also been told that if you don't put much energy in that other decision, eventually it will dissipate anyway. So the one you make now is the one you have chosen, and that's going to be your life you focus on. Don't worry about the other one. I know there's a woman, I'm another person who never got into any of this. I don't know if she's sitting home knitting and watching TV or what. I don't know what she's doing. But my other me didn't get into any of this. I wish her luck wherever she is. But this is an interesting idea, and these are real concepts. And there's something for you to think about anyway. But this means there are all of these other parts of you. So it doesn't matter, you make the best decision that you think for your life. But this is where we get into parallel universes, parallel lifetimes. And they keep talking about dimensions. There are thousands of dimensions. The scientists keep talking about fifth dimension, sixth dimension. There are thousands. Many of these dimensions, there will only be a slight difference. And you're constantly going in and out of these other dimensions all the time. You don't notice it unless there's something that gets your attention. I had one woman who was a college student, and she said she came out of her dormitory one day, and there was a lot of construction going on right in front of the dormitory. They had the barriers up and the orange cones, and they were digging up the street. Well, the next morning she comes out of the dormitory, there's no sign of any construction at all. That's what I mean, unless something happens to catch your attention, you're not even going to notice. You're constantly moving in and out of these. Another one might say, they see this beautiful tree on the block where they live in. The next day, there isn't any tree. We have crossed over just that little bit into the other dimension. It begins to show you reality is not at all what you think it is. Everything is energy. Everything is an illusion. I had one client that said she was out jogging and she saw an airplane coming in, and it was coming in through the treetops, big airliner. And she could see it coming in. She said, it's going to crash. She could see it about a block or so down. It's going to crash. And she turned around and ran back to the house, turned on the TV to see if there any news about an airplane crashing. Well, there wasn't. So part of what she wanted to have the session was about, what was that? They said she had crossed over into a dimension where there was an airport over there. And it didn't exist in her normal reality. But see, you don't stay there because it's not your reality here. You all know when you put something down, an object or something, your glasses or car keys, you go back, you can't find them. Then a little later you go back and they're there. They have gone into this other dimension and come back. When that happens to me, I always say, guys, put it back, I need it. But we had one story too where a woman, she lived in an apartment building. She went out of the apartment building onto the street, and it was back like in the 1950s. The dresses, the cars, like she had gone backwards in time into the 1950s. And she's walking down the street, nobody's paying any attention to her at all. And she was getting scared. But she went back into the apartment building and went back up to her apartment. Everything came back to normal. I hear lots of these stories. People on trips, and they'll be out in the middle of nowhere on a road, and they find a gas station, and they stop to get gas, and they say, boy, that gas is cheap. And they fill up their tank, and they go on and find a little hotel that's really low price. They stay the night. Well, the next day, when they want to go back to the gas station, there's no gas station. And if they try to find that hotel again, there's no hotel. I hear these stories all the time. One strange one, this woman, when I'm on the Art Bell and the George Noory show, we get tons of emails when I bring things up like this. And that's where a lot of these stories come from. The one said, she went out to the airport to watch the jets land and take off. She's watching this jet take off and then go backwards, and then go forwards, and then go backwards before it took off. And she, airplanes don't do that. And she'd watched several of them do that. Then she walked out on the street, saw the cars doing the same thing, going forward and going backwards and going forward. And the only thing I could think was that was the juncture point of dimensions, where they weren't solid in one or the other. Have I screwed up your brains enough yet? Okay.